October 1907. New York is on fire, not with flames, but with fear. Banks are collapsing, crowds smash against the doors, begging for their own money. The United States has no central bank. No one is coming to save them. No one, except one old man in a dark room, quietly smoking a cigar. He does not panic. He has seen this before. In fact, he has waited for it. His name is John Pierpont Morgan. History will call him the man who saved America. But saving something is just another way of owning it. This is not a story about a hero. It is a story about how one man turned fear itself into a business, and how he built an empire so large the government itself had to bow. They said no man should have this much power. They were right. But by the time they understood, it was already too late. Let's rewind, because to understand the fire, you must meet the man who lit it. John Pierpont Morgan was not a self-made man. That myth is for the others. He was born in 1837 into serious money. His father was a powerful banker. From the start, John was taught one cold lesson: emotion is weakness. Business is not about being liked, it is about being needed. As a young man, he was sickly, moody, and obsessed with control. During the Civil War, other young men marched to die for their country. Morgan did not. He paid $300 for a substitute to take his place. While men bled, he found his first great deal, selling rifles to the army. He bought 5,000 defective rifles for $3.50 each, and sold them back to the same army for $22 each. The guns were so broken they blew off soldiers' thumbs. Morgan was sued, and Morgan won. That was the pattern of his entire life. The lesson he learned was simple: the law bends for the rich. He would spend the next 40 years proving it, again and again. But selling guns was small. Morgan wanted something bigger to control. He looked at the chaos of America, and he saw opportunity. The country was booming but wild. Everyone was fighting everyone. And in chaos, Morgan discovered his true genius: not building, but controlling. In the 1800s, America ran on one thing: railroads. Railroads were the internet of their time. Whoever controlled them controlled everything. But the railroad owners were reckless. They slashed prices to destroy each other. Price wars, bankruptcies, investors losing everything. Total chaos. Morgan hated chaos. Not for moral reasons. Chaos was simply unprofitable. So he invented a solution that made him a god of Wall Street. It was called Morganization. He would take over failing railroads, crush the competition between them, merge them into one giant system, and put his own men on the board. The chaos stopped. Prices stabilized, profits soared, everyone cheered. But look closer. What really happened here? Competition was dead, and a single man now decided the price of moving a nation. The public thought Morgan brought order. What he really brought was control. By 1900, Morgan controlled 5,000 miles of railroad. He was no longer a banker. He was a one-man government of the American economy. Presidents came and went. Morgan stayed. Morgan decided. And when the whole system finally cracked in 1907, there was only one phone number that mattered in all of America: his. It started with greed, but not Morgan's. Two men tried to corner a copper company. The scheme failed spectacularly. The banks that funded it began to collapse. Panic spread like wildfire. People rushed to pull out their savings. The Knickerbocker Trust, the third largest in New York, fell first. Then the stock market began to freeze. There was no cash left anywhere. The exchange was hours away from shutting down completely. If it closed, thousands of businesses would die overnight. There was no Federal Reserve, no government bailout, nothing. So the richest men in America did the only thing they could. They ran to the one man who had the cash and the nerve to stop it. Morgan was 70 years old, sick, and had just retired. It did not matter. He returned to New York and set up his library as a war room. He summoned the most powerful bankers in the country. Then he locked the doors, literally locked them in. No one would leave until they agreed to save the system. One by one, he forced them to put up their own money to plug the holes. He decided which banks would live and which would be allowed to die. He was not elected. No one voted. He simply had the power, so he used it. For 3 weeks, one old man was the entire financial system of the United States. And slowly, it worked. The panic faded, the markets held, America was saved. The newspapers called him a hero, a savior, the king of Wall Street. But heroes save people for free. Morgan was not a hero, because while he saved America, Morgan made sure to get paid. In the middle of the panic, a huge steel company was about to fail. Morgan's own U.S. Steel wanted to buy it, but that would be an illegal monopoly. So Morgan went to the president, Theodore Roosevelt himself. He said, "Let me buy it, or the whole economy might collapse tomorrow." It was a threat wrapped in a rescue, and Roosevelt caved. The government promised not to stop him. Morgan bought the company for a fraction of its real value. During a panic he was helping to manage, he didn't just save the fire, he bought the burning houses at a discount. This is the pattern, this is the whole secret. The powerful don't wait for good times, they profit most from disasters. Because disaster is when everyone else is too scared to act. While the crowd runs from the fire, the predator walks calmly toward it. Morgan understood a truth most people never learn. Fear is not something to survive. Fear is something to buy, cheaply. By the time the panic ended, Morgan was richer and more powerful than ever. But even a king casts a shadow. And people were beginning to notice his. After 1907, one question haunted America. How did we let one man become more powerful than the entire government? Congress launched an investigation into what they called the Money Trust. They found something terrifying. A tiny group of men, led by Morgan, sat on the boards of the banks, the railroads, the factories, everything. They controlled over $22 billion. In today's money, that's trillions. It was an invisible empire hidden inside the machinery of America. They dragged the 75-year-old Morgan in to testify. He did not flinch. A lawyer asked, "Isn't commercial credit based on money or property?" Morgan replied with the words that defined his entire philosophy. "No, sir. The first thing is character. A man I do not trust could not get money from me on all the bonds in Christendom." It sounds noble, but think about what it really means. Money didn't decide who succeeded in America. Morgan's personal opinion did. If he trusted you, you could build an empire. If he didn't, you were finished. That is not a free market. That is a kingdom with one king. The investigation exposed him, but it could not really touch him. Morgan was too big to punish. He had become the system itself. A few months after the hearings in 1913, J.P. Morgan died in Rome. On the day of his funeral, the New York Stock Exchange closed for him. An honor usually reserved for heads of state, for a president, for a king. Here is the twist history loves to hide. The world's most powerful banker was worth about $80 million. A fortune, but far less than people expected. Rockefeller was worth 10 times more. When he heard the number, Rockefeller said something brutal. And to think, he wasn't even a rich man, because Morgan never chased money. Money was just a tool. What he wanted was control. And control he had more than any man alive. His legacy did not die with him, it grew. The panic he solved convinced America it needed a permanent solution. In 1913, they created a central bank, the Federal Reserve, built partly on secret meetings between the same banking families Morgan led. So the man who was too powerful helped design the system that replaced him. Morgan is gone, but the machine he built still runs the world today. So, the next time someone saves you in your darkest hour, ask one cold question. What exactly are they buying? Because in the world of the powerful, no one is ever saved for free. This was The World Behind the World. Thanks for watching.